When I was in high school, the definitions of sympathy and empathy were different from what they are today. Today, sympathy is feeling pity or sorrow for someone's misfortune, while empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person from their perspective. When I was in high school, sympathy was for when someone went through a situation you had not experienced, and empathy was for when someone went through a situation you had experienced. In this video, I want to share a few reasons why I, for myself, am going back to the previous definitions of sympathy and empathy. The first reason is self-awareness. The previous definition of sympathy and empathy require us to use self-awareness to identify whether the situation someone is sharing with us is one we have experienced empathy or have not experienced sympathy. An example for this is, let's say you're speaking to someone who's experiencing an end of a friendship. You have also experienced an end of a friendship, but in your case, the friendship ended because after spending months apart, you realized you're different people. You feel hurt and pain because you expected to be friends with this person for years. However, the person who's sharing their story with you is experiencing an end of a friendship because of lie and deceit. So although there is a similarity between both situations, ending of a friendship, there are differences in the details. And so self-awareness can help us identify whether it's a situation we have experienced or have not. Another reason for adopting the previous definitions of sympathy and empathy is that it teaches us how to remain in the present moment. To explain this, I want to bring back the current definition of empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person from their perspective. Now, the first part, ability to understand, I agree with. It's similar to putting yourself in their shoes and feeling the emotional pain and energy of that person. Like, you may feel an ache in your heart, or you might feel it in your gut. The second part of that definition, share their feelings, is where I disagree. And let me know in the comments what you think. You can share cake, you can't share feelings. It is possible, however, to create mental scenarios of what it must be like to be in the situation, how the person must be feeling, what they must be thinking. But that doesn't mean we're actually in that scenario. It's kind of like when you're in a meeting or class or watching a video and you zone out. You start thinking about your lunch plans, evening plans, or what your weekend looks like. You don't see what's right in front of you. You don't hear what's around you. In that same sense, when we create mental scenarios of what it must be like to go through a situation, we can add our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, conclusions, assumptions, inferences onto the scenario that we've created. And we can then project that onto the other person. So by remaining in the present moment, we're able to avoid putting our own thoughts and emotions onto the other person. Why is this important? Because we realize that although we can create a mental scenario of what it must be like to go through something, that does not mean that we're actually, physically, really experiencing that situation. So we can be there by understanding the person, putting ourselves in their shoes, and feeling their emotional pain. That allows us to be there for the person emotionally. And by remaining in the present moment, we're also able to be there for the person mentally and physically. An example for this is, let's say you're speaking to someone who's experiencing losing their job, and you haven't experienced job loss. If you create a mental scenario of what it must be like to lose your job, how they must be feeling, what they must be thinking, what their fears must be, you make it about you. And then let's say you hear some news related to the situation. You can then add that to your mental scenario and then project that onto the other person. So by remaining in the present moment, we're able to show up for the person as they need and when they need. And we allow the conversation to be about them, what they need, what they want, how they feel, how they think. Following the previous definition of sympathy and empathy also teaches us how to be humble. Nobody wishes or desires for painful situations and misfortune. We all know this. So the ability to admit to ourselves and to others, I don't know what it's like to experience this, requires us being humble. And with this, we can allow and create space, conversational and emotional space for the other person to share their situation, their story, thoughts, and emotions. It's also a sign of respect because we're not making it about ourselves, our mental scenarios, and our projections. We leave that space for the other person. Some final thoughts I have on this topic is how the current definition of sympathy, pity, or sorrow for someone's misfortune is very negative, insulting, and a "this is shitty to do" definition. It's also narrow, pity and sorrow. That means anything else someone does, it's good, it's okay, it's empathy. I also disagree with the polarity of these definitions, of one being much, much better than the other. The previous definitions of sympathy and empathy were neutral, they were objective. Empathy, I have experienced this. Sympathy, I have not experienced this. And whether it was a situation of sympathy or empathy, you could show for the other person. You could care, love, understand, and have compassion for them. Because one wasn't better or worse than the other, they were for different situations. So in conclusion, by readopting the previous definitions of sympathy and empathy, we're able to put into practice self-awareness, remaining in the present moment, and humbleness. We're able to allow the conversation to be about the other person and not make it all about us. If you enjoyed this video and what I had to say, let me know your thoughts below. Thank you for watching.